Other news is unfortunately overshadowing the great play on the court we're seeing in this year's playoffs. As the league said earlier today, the audio recording posted by TMZ is truly offensive and disturbing. And we intend to get to the bottom of it as quickly as possible. I personally think the situation is most unfair to the Clippers players and coaches who have to deal with this distraction in the middle of their own highly competitive playoff series. And in fact, I spoke to both Doc Rivers and Chris Paul earlier today to share those sentiments with them. Mayor Kevin Johnson, who has been assisting the Players Association in their search for a new executive director, was also in touch with me today, and he has been asked by the players to become involved in this situation. And he expressed to me the players' grave concerns over this matter, and we've agreed to remain in close contact. Let me just add that all members of the NBA family should be afforded due process and a fair opportunity to present their side of any controversy, which is why I'm not yet prepared to discuss any potential sanctions against Donald Sterling. We will, however, move extraordinarily quickly in our investigation. In the meantime, Mr. Sterling has agreed that he will not attend his playoff game tomorrow in Golden State. And now I'm happy to take any questions.
Before the question, please identify yourself with your name and affiliation. We'll start with Brian. Yes. Please wait.
Brian Windhurst, ESPN. Adam, what sort of provisions are there in place that exist for you and the other owners to discipline an owner in a situation like this?
There are broad powers in place under the NBA's constitution and bylaws that include a range of sanctions, and all of those will be considered depending on the findings of our investigation.
Peter?
Adam, Peter Fleischer, Fox 13 here in Memphis. Does Donald Sterling's past history with racial controversy play into your decision or thought process at all?
It hasn't so far. We're very focused on the audio tape that was posted by TMZ right now and the facts around it.
Jay Adonde, ESPN. Adam, following up on that, with regards to the previous instance, why was no action, punitive action, taken in any of those cases?
You know, Jay, I can't speak to the past as to why decisions were made. You know, and I'm not sure exactly what incident you're referring to. You know, the settlement with well, you know, there was a settlement, and as I understand it, with no finding of discrimination. But I haven't looked back yet at any past proceedings involving Mr. Sterling.
Gary?
Gary Parrish, CBSSports.com. Your sport's biggest star, LeBron James, said earlier today that there's no place in the NBA for Donald Sterling. Do you share that opinion?
What I've said is that Donald Sterling should be afforded due process just as any player in this league or any executive in this league would be. So it would be, you know, unwise of me and improper, frankly, to express a view as to what the ultimate outcome of any investigation would take us to.
Adam, Doc Holliday, ABC 24 here in Memphis. If the Clippers players were to protest tomorrow's game or decide not to play, what would be the NBA stance on something like that?
Fortunately, we're not dealing with that situation. As I said, I've talked to Mayor Kevin Johnson, who's become involved in this situation, spoke directly to Chris Paul, spoke to Doc Rivers. Their focus is on competing in their current playoff series. And I appreciate that and the fact that Kevin Johnson has made himself available to the players to help them work through this situation.
Adam, Steve Ashburn, NBA.com. Reaction among some players and their families and fans has been swift and in some cases angry. What do you feel the tone of just race relations in this league are? Are things below the surface?
I'm extraordinarily proud of the relations we have in this league with each other, you know, among various ethnic groups, various nationalities. We have an extraordinary number of international players who play in this league, and I think our track record is stellar. And while I understand anger that would be naturally expressed over hearing a tape like this, I also believe that ultimately the players and the rest of the NBA family has confidence that we'll deal with it appropriately.
We have time for 2 to 3 more. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff Calkins from the Commercial Appeal here in Memphis. Is the nature of the investigation simply, I suspect it largely about the authenticity of the tape? Is that the guts of the investigation? And then secondly, was there a thought to go ahead and suspend him pending the investigation, given the unhappiness and the seriousness of the remarks?
Well, as I said, Mr. Sterling agreed that he would not attend the game tomorrow, and the investigation is ongoing. As to your question, yeah, I'd say the core of the investigation is understanding whether the tape is authentic, interviewing Mr. Sterling, potentially interviewing the woman as well, and understanding the context in which it was recorded.
Adam Silver, Jarvis Greer, WMC Action News 5, Memphis. Are you expecting a meeting soon with Chris Paul and the Players Union on this issue? And what kind of things will you say to them as to allay whatever fears they may have about this going forward?
Chris Paul, of course, not only is a member of the Clippers, but also is the president of the Players Association. And he and I agreed earlier today that all of his attention should be focused on competing in the playoffs. And that's why they have a union. They have a strong union. I think they're fortunate that Kevin Johnson was in a position where he could step in, even though he's also leading the search for a new executive director. He offered to be helpful to him, to Chris and the union in this situation. So he will be representing them in discussions with us. And I'm sure once the season's over, there'll be additional discussions with the players.
Teresa Walker, the Associated Press. Mr. Silver, you talk about extraordinarily fast. The Clippers play Tuesday night back in L.A. Do you hope to have this maybe wrapped up by Tuesday night?
We do hope to have this wrapped up in the next few days.
Last question, Don.
Don Wade, Memphis Daily News. Baseball twice suspended Marge Schott for racially insensitive remarks. If the tape is proven authentic, does that serve as a good guide in this situation?
You know, I remember some of the facts around the Marge Schott situation, but less as a sports executive than as a baseball fan, and I would have to go back and reacquaint myself with that situation.
All right. Thank you, everyone.